seated. Note for the record that all 15 of our jurors are present. Were there any violations of the court's admonitions?
No.
Any discussion of the evidence?
No.
Any deliberations?
No.
Any consultation of outside sources or independent investigation?
No.
Are all of 15 of you ready to proceed?
Yes.
And you've now heard all the proof that you are going to hear in the case. We're going to proceed to closing arguments. As I have told you before, closing arguments are not evidence. They are the evidence you've received already through the court. Is the state ready to proceed?
We are.
You may begin.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I didn't really get a chance to talk to y'all during voir dire. My name is Tracy Jenkins. I'm one of the assistant district attorneys involved in this case. General Desmond actually talked to y'all at the beginning about what you were going to hear today during opening, about how the evidence would show to you all that as long as Miranda Goddard was being exploited by the defendant, that was going to be okay. But when she made her own decision to enter into a sexual deal with Jimmy Shelton that the defendant knew about, that the defendant would put a stop to it, and he did just that, ladies and gentlemen. He shot and killed Jimmy Shelton, an unarmed man, no weapon of any kind, on Mr. Shelton's own back porch, without provocation, after laying in wait, after sneaking around, after listening, after recording, after narrating for 22 minutes and 47 seconds. He committed first-degree premeditated murder on August 28th of 2015. So we're going to talk about, and I've got kind of a PowerPoint up here, and I know it's all off to y'all's side. Some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be up there. The elements of first-degree murder, which the judge is going to give you all during jury instructions, and my presentation is not the law here. I'm just going to talk to you all about what I anticipate you're going to hear. The defendant, we have to show you all, we have to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, all three of these elements, that the defendant unlawfully killed Jimmy Shelton, that the defendant acted intentionally, and that the killing was premeditated. So I'm just going to start with the first one. Talk about the defendant unlawfully killed the Jimmy Shelton. Now, you all have heard all the proof today. And the vast majority of the proof is in the form of the recording, which we've talked about, and we've heard, and we've listened to portions of again and again. And you all have an opportunity to take it back and listen to it. But I'm going to point out some of the things that the state believes are important. But what we all know here is that there is no question who killed whom. That defendant shot and killed Jimmy Shelton. So it isn't about whether or not he killed him. It's about whether we can prove to you all that it was an unlawful killing. We submit to you all that this is not a case of a lawful killing. Is some of the things that happened here in the past distasteful to say it gracefully? Of course it is. But we don't have vigilante justice here in the state of Tennessee or in the United States. We don't do that. If we have a situation where someone is doing harm to a child and a parent or another person catches that person in the middle of doing that and then they act and they maybe kill the person doing the harm, that's a justified homicide. If a burglar is caught inside a home by the homeowner and they're defending their home and their family and they shoot and kill them, that is a lawful killing. If a robber tries to take something from a victim and the victim then uses deadly force and kills the robber, that is not an unlawful act. That is not going to be something that's criminally prosecutable. These are very generic examples, but they illustrate what a big part of this is about, and that's about reasonableness of the actions of the person doing the killing. So here, obviously in those examples, the people of the state of Tennessee have decided that those kind of examples are justifiable homicides. This is not one of those cases, ladies and gentlemen. The defendant knew what was happening between Miranda and Jimmy. He knew it. He'd been surprised by it. That'd be different, but he wasn't surprised. He'd known for some time about the history, and he knew what was happening that particular night. He didn't just happen upon them, even that night, in the midst of some kind of sexually compromising position. He did not do that. He watched and he listened. So let's look at the recording. At 29 seconds, Jimmy says, "And let me pay for an hour." And by the way, John Deffin's going to play these as I show them. 1:17, Miranda says, "I can arrange it. I can make it happen. Trust me, I'm about money."
I can arrange it. I can make it happen, but it's in my realm. Trust me, I'm about money.
1:39, Jimmy says, and by the way, you all do remember, the person that you're hearing when the narration starts is the defendant. There's no question about whether he's hearing this. It got bad enough in the last month, I would say, for you and one of your friends.
It got bad enough in the last month. I would say for you and one of your friends, I'd do 300 good for an hour. Oh, I gotta check this out for that.
He's hearing that, ladies and gentlemen. Then he's hearing this.
Just took me. You two want each other.
And then
You want to play? What are you fighting for?
what are you fetching for? He hears Miranda, and he's narrating Miranda and Jimmy Shelton entering into an agreement. Is it a tasteful agreement? Obviously it's not. But is it an agreement that's lawful? Yeah. It's two consenting adults. And he knows it. Miranda says, "We can arrange something." And the defendant narrates.
We can arrange something.
And then we hear about the car.
I know. And I'm working with that. And I can arrange. I do not want to spend anything. It's not sure I'm not going to spend anything. We can make it happen. As long as it's open hours. No second. I need to make it happen. But I don't want you to expect me to have anything. I have to be honest. And I'm not trying from anyone from him. And I need you to know that. And I need you to be okay with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the defendant when asked about these statements. And by the way, him having testified, his credibility is being judged by you all just like any other witness. You can believe him, you cannot believe him. But he would have you believe by his testimony that he wasn't sure if this was consensual or not. Ladies and gentlemen, the state posits to you today that it is clearly a consensual encounter between the two of them on that night. And it goes on. And by the way,
As long as there's no sex involved, I can make it happen. I'm not being copious at all. People can copy it. I just I don't want that to get part of your contract, so I can make sure of this. But I'm not going to lie to him. Period. I'm not asking you in my love.
And then it goes on.
And I don't want you to expect me to do anything from an awful life, and he knows it. You can be comfortable with not doing it happen. It's not what he will be if it means having a means of repetition. Yeah, well, in other words, no. He will. No thoughtful, committed instruction. No, it's fine. No, it's fine.
He's not, but he will be if it means having a means of transportation. She's literally telling, the defendant's narrating this, Miranda, is literally telling Jimmy that he will be okay with it if it means he gets a means of transportation. It's all consensual, and you know what? It's as much about him as it is about Miranda. He's not working. He's not got a job. He's living on the good graces of Don McGinnis and Jimmy Shelton. Miranda's making this deal for her and for him, and he knows it, and he can hear it, and he's talking about it, and he knows it's consensual. And then it goes on.
He will be okay with it. He won't like it, but he'll be okay with it. As long as there's no actual sex involved. Well, I mean, maybe other connotations involved with him being comfortable, just making sure that I'm not being hurt or anything like that. But no, I'm not stipulations when it comes to shit like that. It's not stipulation. It's just so you know that I'm fucking paying for it and I'm going to do it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to lose y'all there. So the defendant knows that Miranda is negotiating a sex act in exchange for a car, and that it's meant to benefit him. And he would have you all believe that only Jimmy Shelton's the only person who ever exploited her. Only Jimmy Shelton. According to him, Jimmy Shelton's exploiting her, and he's going to have to kill Jimmy Shelton in self-defense, if you believe his story, because he's exploiting her. He's exploiting her. That's what this whole thing's about. He knows what she's doing. He's letting her do it. He's sitting in there listening, and he's recording it because he's going to use it as a contingency when he goes out and shoots him. He's using Miranda. He is. The defendant is. And it goes on.
So, either he can, as long as you're not penetrating me, I'm not with your penis, it'll be fine. I think we should let this deal out. Step out of the picture. And I'll do and make sure that it'll be a further conversation. And we'll go past a conversation. And then it's past, it'll be what it is. But more than that, a conversation. Well, unfortunately, that conversation.
It goes on. And this is at 16:49, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. We're at 16 minutes and 49 seconds into this recording.
Well, I know it's like, but it means our survival. You won't like it. But you'll be okay with it, one way or another. I'm more of us moving forward. And I don't care what it takes. Even though I like it, but they'll be okay with it. As much as it likes it, they'll be okay with it.
So even Miranda knows that the defendant is exploiting her. He won't like it, but he'll be okay with it. As much as he doesn't like it, he'll be okay with it. And then it goes on at 1748. And then at 1828.
Whatever. Yours is mine. No, I will never be interested in that. But anything after that, you, I understand that. Whatever happens, whatever, honorable. And the right. What about you for them? You're already opening over. I know, but...
Now this next part, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear the defendant tell you what it is he's seeing that's going on that's consensual. At 19 minutes and 40 seconds. And then
I need to ask you. Was praying honorable?
So he's seeing him. He says she sat on his lap, and then next he's going to say, So he is, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is not a situation where he's surprised. There's no, in the heat of passion here, you'd imagine that if he just walked in and caught him, potentially. But that's not here. He's talking about what he's seeing. He's narrating what he's seeing. And he's got a gun, or he's going to get one. And then, well, if you believe him, he has it on with his swim trunks. But at any rate, the next thing that happens is we hear Miranda.
Sean, stop.
No! Stop!
We hear Miranda trying to stop it. We hear Miranda say, Sean, stop, 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 stop. 6 times she's trying to get him to stop. She's telling him to stop. She told you all she was saying stop to him. And then, of course, the shots are fired.
I'm starting this now. I fucking swear to God. All that's on fucking recording and it's recording right now. I fucking swear to God you say fuck. You fuck with her again, and I will fucking drop you.
Sean, stop.
No! That's too fucking much. You're fucking stop! That's too fucking much! Sean! No! That's too fucking much. You go over here now. Come here. Come here now! I'll call 911. What do you think? He was molesting Yes!
Sean, stop. Sean, what did you do? Sean, no. She's talking to Sean the whole time, ladies and gentlemen. She's never talking to Jimmy Shelton once Sean comes out the door with a gun in his hand. She's trying to stop Sean from doing what Sean is intent upon doing. And again, the defendant would have you all believe that he somehow is shocked by this sexual thing that's going on. And he's not. He knows that she's got scantily clad nude Facebook photos. He knows that she's made sex videos. In fact, he made a sex video with her. He knows, the defendant knows that she's selling them. The defendant's not ashamed of that. He knows that she's worked as an exotic thing. He knows all of these things. Miranda and sex is not a surprise to Sean Foley. And in fact, sex is not a big deal to him. He's having sex with Miranda Goddard in the bathroom of her mother's residence with two little girls in the house, loud enough for Jimmy and Marissa to hear it, in the area where they're seated, the office or the library, whatever it was. In that area of the house, they're in there having sex. And in fact, his testimony was that it was first in the other bathroom, and then, according to Marissa and him, it was in the bathroom for everybody to hear. So he's not shocked. It's not reasonable for him to act like he was shocked by anything going on here. And also, ladies and gentlemen, the defendant's not worried about Jimmy's history. He's had a good relationship with Jimmy. He's traveled with their family. He wants his own little girl to sleep in the same room Jimmy sleeps in. The defendant doesn't even have a relationship with Miranda Goddard that's longer than about a month or so. The use of deadly force was not necessary on Jimmy Shelton that evening. Maybe Sean Foley could have punched him in the nose, but not shoot him, fire off 8 shots and shoot him 4 times. That was not a justified shooting. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for you to hear Mr. Foley's statements to 911, and they're a pretty good distance into the recording here. They're at 2809. This is what he tells the 911 operator.
But I walked outside and told him to stop, and I looked at Miranda, and she told me to stop. And
then he goes on.
And he was talking about, what do you want to do now? And I looked out the window, and I was fucking watching, and I was repeating everything. And I saw him stick his hand in his pants, so I fucking ran outside and tell him to stop. And Miranda walked up and said, baby, it's okay, as she was pulling her fucking pants up.
Do you notice whose hand he said he stuck his pants down when he's talking to the 911 operator? He says he saw him stick his hand down his pants. So he's seeing, the defendant is seeing this sex act, but some of it's not even about him touching Miranda. Some of it's about Jimmy Shelton touching himself. So ladies and gentlemen, the question is, did Miranda need help? So was there some kind of a justification here because he needed to come out there and help Miranda? Well, let's listen to Miranda post-shooting.
Come now! Come here now!
Sir, are you still there?
Miranda?
Sir, please get here. 808 Beaver Drive in Maryville. Please get her now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Miranda, come here now. Please come here. I was...
Sir, please.
Here now. We have to go up front. We have to go up.
I still have my weapon in my hand, sir.
I think he's right there in the front of the driveway. They not walk. Are you standing? You won't go.
Okay. Miranda, put your hands up.
Why? So why?
Yes, sir, her mother.
Miranda, it's okay.
What did you do?
Ladies and gentlemen, she didn't need help from him that night. She's devastated by the fact that he's just shot a man right in front of her. And she didn't call for help. Sean Foley is sitting in the house listening to this whole thing happen for 22 minutes and 47 seconds. She didn't scream for help. There were multiple other people in the house. Again, the question here is whether or not he's acting in any way reasonably. She had sent him inside. She knew what she was doing, and he's not doing anything that a normal, reasonable person would have done, except he's recording the whole thing for the contingency. He knew she didn't need help. He was the one with the problem about what was going on outside. Neither Jimmy Shelton nor Miranda Goddard had a problem with what was happening. Ladies and gentlemen, the state submits to you that this is not a lawful, it is an unlawful killing of Jimmy Shelton. So let's look at our second element. The second element that we are required to prove to you all is that a person acted intentionally. And they do so when it is their conscious, objective, or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. So, ladies and gentlemen, we submit that this is not a difficult question, whether he acted intentionally. What did you all hear and see in this trial that shows that it was his conscious, objective, or desire to kill Jimmy Shelton? Well, there's the audio recording, which we've heard multiple times. He says, right before he goes out the door, "I'm stopping this now." And he doesn't go out there to stop it with just his fists or a cell phone. He takes a gun. He's going to kill Jimmy Shelton. He goes down, he goes around somewhere in the room, down the hall, through the kitchen. He's going to kill Jimmy Shelton. He goes out onto the porch. He's going to kill Jimmy Shelton. He begins yelling, "Effing now, I swear, I effing swear to God." He is swearing to God as he points a gun, that gun that's in evidence that you all are going to have back in the jury room if you need to look at it, that I effing swear to God. What's he mean by that? He's saying, "I'll kill you." And then he actually says it, "You F with her again and I will effing drop you." And then, ladies and gentlemen, the defendant would have you believe he wasn't telling him he was going to kill him. What does "I will drop you" mean? It means he's going to kill him. And he did. He's not afraid of Jimmy Shelton. He's acting intentionally, with premeditation, with deliberation. He is intent upon killing him. It's evident in his voice that he's not afraid. He doesn't sound afraid when he says, "I will drop you." He sounds like he's the one in control. And Jimmy Shelton isn't armed with anything. Y'all have seen the pictures of him on the porch. He's in shorts and a t-shirt. But the defendant is armed. He's got a .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun, and he's pointing it at, and he's about to shoot dead an unarmed man on his own porch. Jimmy Shelton is drunk. You can hear the slurring throughout the recording. You've seen his blood alcohol level. At the time they draw blood to do it at the autopsy, his blood alcohol level, the blood stops pumping when he dies. Whatever his blood alcohol level is, it is when they draw the blood. He's a .23, I believe it is. Sean has been drinking, as is evident by his TBI report, but he's not got nearly as much alcohol in his system as Mr. Shelton does. You can hear it in the defendant's voice. He's not drunk, and he is intent upon committing murder. Jimmy Shelton had to have been shocked when the defendant busted out the back door with a gun. He had to have been stunned. He'd been out there alone on the porch with Miranda for 22 minutes and 47 seconds at least, having a consensual sexual encounter. Miranda had to have been shocked. She's out there brokering this deal. The victim is going to get a car the victim's going to get her car that she can share with this defendant. And so she thinks all is well. She'd send him back in so she could do this deal. but she is stunned when he comes out. And she says, Sean, stop, 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 stop. You can hear the shock in her voice as she is screaming and crying about Jimmy being dead. And you heard her help. You heard her testimony. She did not need help from the defense. And you can hear it in what's going on. She doesn't need help. Even if for some reason if you didn't have the recording. If you didn't have the recording and Miranda said, I didn't need help, maybe you could think, well, I don't know, maybe she didn't need help. Except we have the recording. She doesn't need help. She's not asking for help. She's not crying for help. She is as stunned as Mr. Shelton is when the defendant appears through that door holding a gun. And by the way, she testified to you all that he came out pointing the gun. The defendant cannot claim to have been shocked because he's in there listening and he's reflecting. He's heard the specifics of $300 for an hour of girl on girl. He's listened as Miranda agreed and negotiated the parameters of the deal. She's a pro at this and he can hear it. At one point, he says, I want to stop this. And then that's after he's heard the whole negotiation. And then he waits for her. And he's listening, and he's recording, and he's narrating. And we know he's watching because we saw she sat on his lap. I'm trying to get a better look. He's kissing her. He's trying to reach down her pants. Ladies and gentlemen, the state submits to you that the evidence points to this not being some type of an accident or some type of a voluntary manslaughter situation. This is an intentional act by this defendant. So let's turn to our final element, that the killing was premeditated, planned, or thought about, reflected upon. There are several things that you all can consider when you are trying to determine whether we've proven to you all beyond a reasonable doubt that this was a premeditated act. The use of a deadly weapon on an unarmed person. As much as he might want to convince you all that he thought that Mr. Shelton was armed, that's ridiculous. That's absurd. There's nothing that shows it. There's no evidence of it. It is a untruth. He was not armed. He wasn't armed. And it wasn't reasonable for him to think he was. So he has used a deadly weapon on an unarmed person. A defendant's threats or declarations of intent to kill. Well, we've heard him say, I swear to God, and I will drop you. And then we've heard him actually do it. So he's clearly made declarations and threats to kill. He's getting a weapon. Now, again, he tells you all he had it on him the whole time. It's ridiculous. He's in a pair of swimming trunks, walking around the house with who? 2 kids, a 9 months pregnant woman, his girlfriend's mom, his girlfriend, and this man that he's helping move furniture and texting with and having reasonable conversations with. He didn't have a gun on him. He got it. He got it to kill Jimmy Shelton. His calmness or reaction after the killing. Ladies and gentlemen, the state submits to you part of the calmness of this whole thing is his willingness to record it. To record it for the contingency that he told you all, that's why he records things. The contingency that he was going to justify his shooting. That he was going to be able to come along and say to a jury or to a law enforcement officer or to whomever would listen to this. I killed him, but here's why. Here's why. You'll know because I recorded it. He recorded it knowing there was going to be a sexual agreement going on, knowing there was one going on, and he planned to use that for the contingency to justify himself today. So, a premeditated act means that the intent to kill must have been formed prior to the act itself. So, in other words, it didn't just happen. You can intentionally kill someone under the laws of the state of Tennessee and factually without planning it out. That can happen and does happen. But not here, ladies and gentlemen. It is not necessary the purpose to kill pre-exist for an indefinite period of time, so you don't have to plan it for a week. I know General Desmond talked about this a little bit in Bordar. You don't have to, under the laws of the state of Tennessee, plan that out for a week. If the design or plan was formed with premeditation, it's immaterial that he may have been in a state of passion or excitement when the plan was carried into effect. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's our position that the defendant, while he may have sounded like he was in a state of passion, and he may have been excited, that he had a design to kill even in that particular state of mind. And premeditation can be found on the second one there, if the decision to kill is first formed during the heat of passion, but he commits the act after the passion has subsided. So I don't know what he was thinking at the beginning of the recording. But maybe you can imagine he's just hearing for the beginning of that 22 minutes what's going on, and he got excited then. But during that time, he's developing this plan to kill, ladies and gentlemen. There's no more important evidence in this case than the recording. So why did he make it? Well, as we've told you all before, and as he told you on the stand when he testified, it was a contingency, and he intended to use it to justify the shooting when he went outside. The evidence points that the defendant was lying in wait, recording the interaction between Jimmy and Miranda in an attempt and in an effort to provide a justification for the shooting. He knew their history. Miranda had sent him inside so they could discuss the deal. He was possessive of Miranda, could have easily gone outside and refused to leave the two of them alone. He didn't have to go inside and leave them alone. He didn't. If he thought she's drunk, he's drunk, this is a bad idea, I ought not leave them out here by themselves, he could have stopped this before it ever started. He did not stop it before it ever started. He could have stopped it before it got worse. He didn't stop it before it got worse. He let it happen knowing he was recording it with the intent to kill. He kept recording even when it was clear it was a consensual negotiation and he knew where it was headed. He grabbed the gun with the intent, knowing full well the drunk people on the porch did not have one. He went through that house with the intent, knowing full well there was a house full of people he could have gotten help from, including those two little girls who were around and nearby when this shooting happened. Not that the little girls would have helped him, ladies and gentlemen. Just he knows they're there. He went out on the porch and pointed a gun at Jimmy Shelton and within seconds had killed an unarmed man on his own porch. We submit to you all, ladies and gentlemen, that the evidence is clear in this case, that this is a premeditated, reflected upon act, that the defendant has committed premeditated first-degree murder, and that his intent to do so is indicated by a plethora of things, but including that he told him he would effing drop him, and within seconds had dropped him. We ask you all to find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
Mr. Kinsey, on behalf of the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor.